So there we have the two teams going from bow to stroke. The American twice doctorate, she's going to be Laurel Kay. I was talking to her the other day, amazing lady. Claire Aitken in the 2 seats from Oriel College, studying cardiovascular science. Sarah Hillin, the president, in the 3 seat. Freya Willis, the Aussie, in the 4 seat. Alison Carrington in the 5 seat, race for Osiris last year. Not too many blues in this boat. Ella Stadler holding down the 6 seat, the joint British-American from Exeter College. And Sarah Marshall, not that much experience in the 7 seat, but she's learning all the time, and she's really held that seat down well. Esther Austin, the Kiwi, in the stroke seat, former world junior oarswoman, and Tara Slade, the medic, and Harry Potter geek as well, in the Cox of the Oxford University women's crew. And then Oxford Brookes A. Well, do you want to take them through this, or shall I go through?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking here at one of the very best women's crews in the country, so they're pretty spectacular. They're just coming off an incredible week last week, 3rd at the 8th head of the river. And we're not just talking about 3rd in university standards. The winners were British national team, 2nd were very strong Leander crew, then Oxford Brookes were 3rd right up there. They actually beat the GB sculling crew that was put together for a lot of our very good scullers. So a pretty punchy crew there. Martha Birtles in the bow seat, Orion Smelding, the Dutch rower, in the 2 seat. Ariane Ford in 3. Jenny Bates at 5. Rihanna Sumpter at 6. Grace Richards at 7. Up there, Claire Ferrick and Brianna Randall, coxed by Sophia Bernal.
And it looks like the race has started early, and we've got Oxford Brookes on the right of your picture, so sorry we haven't brought you the start, but the Brookes 8 are leading the Oxford University Women's Boat Club on this near side, the Surrey station, and they're probably, what do you reckon, about 20 strokes into this race, Jess?
Yeah, they've literally just gone off the blocks about a minute early, so we didn't catch the start there, but pretty neck and neck there as they're coming past us. We can see out here outside of London Rowing Club, and a strong start from Brookes, I'd say, by about a ball right here.
Yeah, so Brookes leading by around about a 1/3 of a length. They're coming past our commentary position. We're at London Rowing Club, if you know the tideway, and Brookes have got the lead. They've got the advantage on that right-hand station, the Middlesex station. And Oxford, really important for them to hang on in. And just looking at Esther Austin there, the Kiwi stroke, she's really digging in, isn't she? Leading her crew. And Sarah Marshall, well, she's picking up the front end okay. Maybe a little bit deep, the 7 woman for the Oxford Women's Boat Race, but they haven't been disgraced so far.
No, Martin, and I think lining up here today, they knew they'd have a big task ahead of them against this Brookes crew, and Brookes have really taken it out now to about half length down the boats. They're only about 400-500 metres in now, and are we going to see a clash here?
Yeah, and that's the Oxford Women's Cox that we saw at the start of the programme. Tara Slade steering very close to the Middlesex station, and the Oxford Brookes Cox, Sophia Bernal, the American from University of Iowa, steered this crew, I think, in the head. I think there's still a competition, Richard Spratley was telling me, for who's going to cox the Oxford Brookes First 8, and it's between Sophia Bernal and another of the Oxford Brookes coaches. Oxford being warned, I think, by Matt Smith there.
Yeah, you've got to hold on. You've got to hold on to your blade in those situations. You've got to give a little jab and make sure you're the one putting your blade in the water and not getting disrupted. The coxers are going to do their thing, and you've got to keep doing yours. I think it's about keeping a clear head and making sure you're not going to catch a crab from any of those clashes. But some tight coxing there by both crews.
I just saw Sophia Bernal put the rudder on there to give that little bit of advantage on the inside. There we see Esther Austin in the stroke seat. She's the nearest right on the left of the screen. Sarah Marshall behind her with the cap on, hair streaming behind. They look they look cohesive. Just what's Andy Nelder looking for? I mean, it's no surprise that Oxford Brookes are going to be leading. I guess how this race unfolds in the next minute or two is going to be crucial.
I think this is just a bit of character building, and you know you're going against a very fast crew. It's now exactly that, Martin. How do you respond? You've got to keep laying it down. You've got to keep putting the watts down. They're here practicing for 2 weeks' time, and they've got to put themselves in their own shoes in a few weeks and still getting the most out of themselves. What can you learn from this situation?
Absolutely. This Oxford Brookes crew, we have said, of course, they finished 3rd in the women's head. And quite striking, the Oxford Brookes second crew, some of whom will go up against the Osiris crew. Wow, look at that boat there. Brenna Randall, the Canadian from University of Tennessee, also rode in the British trials recently, came 16th. Claire Ferrick, the Irish woman with the red cap on, in the 7 seat. Grace Richards, the powerhouse, in the 6. She did that pair with Rihanna Sumter rowing behind her in the trials. Fastest under 23 pair, finished 13th. Jenny Bates in the 4 seat, she finished 6th overall in the GB trials in the single in November. I mean, just how much talent has this Oxford Brookes boat got?
They're absolutely jam-packed full of pedigree, and actually they're very race sharp. So this is great practice for the Oxford crew behind, but it's a hard place to be, sitting a length and a half down. They'll start feeling a bit of wash there, I'd have thought, Martin.
Yeah, I wonder how severe Sophia Bernal is going to be, if she's going to move over. She's quite entitled to move over and take the water on the Surrey station. So that choice of Surrey that the Oxford crew made, and they're the crew we're looking at now at the back of your picture, probably about 2 lengths, length of clear water behind the Oxford Brookes crew. That choice of Surrey not looking to be the wisest, because Oxford Brookes did get away at the start and did establish that clear water margin.
Yeah, and we see it here in the boat race, especially because there's a rule that if you've got clear water, you can move ahead. It's really about the position on this tidal bit of water that's forever moving. So you want the quickest bit of water. The Brookes Cox here, she's being very lenient. Sophia Bernal, she could move over if she wants to, but she's being pretty disciplined, staying on her station.
So here we see the Oxford women's blue boat. Just 2 weeks before the boat race, they have put themselves up against the top university in Britain, possibly one of the top women's universities in the world. They have gone toe-to-toe with them, credit to that. But it's no surprise that Oxford Brookes, as we come round this bend, that's our camera, I guess that's from Hammersmith Bridge, Jess.
Yeah, you've got the Harrods Wall on your right-hand side there. A few crews, I think, from Fulham Reach bobbing along, but the boat race fixtures coming down towards Harrods, so they're a couple of kilometres in almost, and they've got to keep their heads, got to keep their hand in the fire here.
Saw Laurel Kay, the experienced one in the crew, rowing at bow. The former lightweight rower made her way in this open weight category. Esther Austin, the Kiwi at stroke, still plugging on with that rhythm. I guess, you know, the middle of this race has not been too bad for the Oxford women. Brookes have moved, but they haven't sort of disgraced the Oxford University women's crew. We've got probably about another 3 minutes of this race. We're going to go under Hammersmith Bridge, you can see there in the background, and round that Surrey bend to Chiswick, which is around about the crossing where the crews actually have to cross over the river. So it's about 3 minutes of racing to go. 5 lengths was the margin on the second piece between Oxford Brookes and Cambridge, and that will be what Andy Nelder and the Oxford women's crew will look at.
Yeah, you can compare slightly to other crews, because over the past 2 or 3 months there have been different fixtures for both Oxford and Cambridge against some of the very best clubs in the country, but this close to the race, I think you're kind of seeing the final boat. The announcement was actually this week at the Apothecaries Hall, so the blue boat's been set now, and their seats are barely certain for the 2 weeks time race, so this is the closest you'll see the final product.
Just great to look at this boat, so controlled, so smooth on the run out forward, and so powerful. I was talking to Richard Spratley about this 8 and said, why couldn't we have the names earlier? He said basically you don't see Man United give you the team sheet, 6 days before the match. They name they want to keep their oarswomen sharp, so that's why they only named this crew this morning.
Look, Oxford Brookes, I've rowed with many an Oxford Brookes rower in my time. They're renowned for this aggressive, hard rowing. They do a really hard programme down there over in Wallingford on the Thames, and you produce these athletes, and there's probably a lot more athletes that could make that top boat, but it's probably very competitive to get into. You're looking here at the absolute pedigree of university rowing, not only in the country but in the world. They won the Ireland, the Women's University 8th race at Henley Royal in 2021. They lost to Brown last year in the Saturdays in the semi-final, so they're probably on this trajectory to get themselves up there and get another Henley win, I imagine, this year, Martin, and they're probably very hungry for it as well, and they're producing an absolute masterclass.
They are hungry for it, and I think they're off to San Diego for the San Diego Crew Classic. I think both men's and women's crews are off for that, which will be a great shout. And there's the Oxford Cox, Tara Slade, taking a wide line around this bend. They're about, probably, what do you reckon that is, 3 lengths of Clearwater down, maybe 4 lengths in total down on the Oxford Brookes crew. That might stretch out to 5 lengths. I guess it's important they keep to 5 lengths.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard when you're behind and you're being told, look, you've got another piece after this, because with these pieces today you're going to split the boat race up into 2 halves, and they have just got to put themselves in the race situation. This is all good training, it's all good practice. They, at the moment, are getting beaten by Oxford Brookes, but there's nothing to say that Cambridge won't be right next to them at this stage in 2 weeks' time. So it's important for them to keep practicing what they set out to do. What are they there to do today? They knew they were racing against a very strong Oxford Brookes crew. What was their race plan today? Stick to it.
Yeah, and this is really where they need the expression in sport is to be within your bubble, isn't it? And you have to really stay focused on your rowing. They would have known that Oxford Brookes were going to beat them. The question is by how much, and therefore you've got to be into your process. And these Oxford women now trailing at the back. We're sorry if you've just lost pictures from our launch following camera, but these Oxford women at the back are really going to be focused in on their own rowing, and that's the way they're going to measure. Did they row well? Did they dig in? Did they keep thinking about their own processes as opposed to the opposition and the distance the opposition was in front of them?
Yeah, and that's very hard to do. This is where we talk about rowing being not just a physical sport, but it's an absolutely mental sport as well. You have to be able to find out where the edge is and keep pushing. And I think I love the analogy of the hand in fire. I think I've said it once already, that feeling like you're on fire but just stay there. And pretty much that's what the boat race is about, that one-on-one fight to stay in the fire. And can you hold your head, and can you be more consistent when the other crew might not be able to? All it might take sometimes is 1 or 2 strokes of weakness and you get your bows ahead.
So the pictures we're seeing now, I don't know if you're seeing the same on the YouTube picture, are just before the crews turn round that left-hand bend, Surrey bend, to go to Chiswick Ayot, and the race will unwind. It looks like it's going to be something like a 5-length margin, I think, from our point of view, and we're sorry if you have lost pictures at the moment, but we're doing our best to bring you the commentary. Races here this afternoon. We have got the Cambridge women on the water. They're up against another fantastic outfit from Leander, and shortly coming up we will show you some pictures, I think certainly off the start, of the Osiris boat. That's the Oxford women's reserve boat up against the Oxford Brookes second boat. Well, it's not actually their second boat, it's kind of a mixture, I think, between their second and their third boats. So those are the races we've got in the first half of the afternoon, and then in the second half of the afternoon we've got the Oxford men going up against the might of Leander, the Oxford men, the ISIS crew going off first against Leander's second 8, and then we've got the first Oxford boat, the blue boat, up against Leander's first crew. And it's going to be really interesting because Leander have of course raced Cambridge, and we're going to really see the difference between the two crews, which looks to be so close this year.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really interesting. We talked earlier about the fact that there's no massive internationals here. A lot of the time, the boat races, Oxford and Cambridge, they really do attract some of the big hitters. Last year we saw Grace Prendergast come and race in the Cambridge University with Ruby Chu, both of them from the New Zealand Olympic team. We saw some of the Swiss guys come across and raced in the Oxford boat. We saw Tom George, Oliver Griffith come race in the Cambridge boat. We don't have those people this year. This year is almost purely, a lot of them are almost what we call kind of a walk-on. A lot of them have started university and they've taken up rowing there. Some of the men's boats slightly different. A few of them have rowed at school and as juniors, but across the board at this time of year we're seeing a lot more kind of pure university rowers.
So just to kind of let you know what's happened, we are missing pictures on our TV commentary screen, which is a shame, but we are now looking at pictures on YouTube, as you guys are. There's a slight delay in the commentary, but in the distance is the Oxford Brookes women's crew, and they are powering away as they have done. Look at those blades really coming down close to the front end. I'm sorry that we have lost pictures on that on our TV camera, but we're back now with you on YouTube as we come to the crossing, which is where the boats cross from the Surrey side of the river over to Middlesex as they make their way upstream. And that will be the end of this race, Jess.
Yeah, and a bit bobbly around there, we'd say. A little bit more water, a bit of wind against tide, which causes that kind of wave on the water. And you can see the Oxford Brookes crew there. We looked at very closely a second ago. They've got tape along their riggers just to minimise any excess water that comes into the boat. You don't want big waves and excess water to be filling up and making your boat heavier as you're rowing.
I think there was word that there were going to be strong southwesterly winds today, and maybe the coaches thought that was the best thing to do, to put the splashballs on the side of the boat. They're going round a long way, aren't they?
Yeah, they're coming right round the bandstand now. I'm not sure if our pictures might have stopped and have started again, but we're coming back round to the crossing point, the second crossing point, almost into the last 2 kilometres of the race.
Well, Oxford Brookes has stopped rowing there. That was a long piece. Normally you would go to Chiswick Steps or whatever. This is such a long piece. I guess that's what Andy Nelder asked for. The Cambridge women did the Tideway Head and finished 9th behind Oxford Brookes' second crew. Finished 8th last week. So they had a long race piece. This is Oxford women's long race piece, isn't it?
Yeah, so with the pieces, if you watch the fixtures previously, they'd normally go up to around Chiswick 8, and right now they've probably gone another 800 metres through that line. So if they're going to spin here, they'll either have a very short second piece, or they might row up and do a little bit longer, but that's changed as they're on the water from what we knew when they boated. But yeah, you can see that was a painful race. The Oxford rowers are hanging over their oars. Probably have a quick debrief here, Martin.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Andy Nelder can go and say, look, what are we going to take from that? Congratulations from 7 woman Sarah Marshall there to her stroke, Esther Austin. Esther Austin congratulating Tara Slade. It's really important they keep a positive frame of mind, isn't it?
They're not racing Oxford Brookes at the boat race, they're racing Cambridge, and that's what they've got to remember. And that's what they're going to have to focus on in this second piece and for the next 2 weeks. It's not always a bad thing to take a bit of a beating to find out where your weak points are. I thought they looked a little bit scrappy off the start. I think if you compared the Oxford crew to this Brookes crew, Brookes looked a little bit more well drilled. Their oars, their spoons were all coming down to the water together. There was a little bit of, it wasn't quite so coherent in that Oxford crew, and I think they could probably practice that. As we see here, a bit of replay off that start line. Yeah,
this is what we didn't see, the start of the race. It's great that we can take you back and look at the start, and there's both crews. Nice easy start, easy squeeze from the Oxford crew on the left hand side. Some of the highlights of that race. Someone watching who's not a rower, Andy Lawrence, has texted and said, how come the Brookes crew are so much better than Oxford? And I guess I'd say recruitment is they basically recruit rowers more effectively, and not like last year when the Olympians came to Oxford men and Oxford and Cambridge women. Basically, is it easiest to get into Oxford Brookes, therefore they can get better rowers? Is that why?